Thank you, Andrew. I'm well, thank you.
That's great. So, um, games development. Why did you get into games development? What triggered that?
So I think I've always wanted to learn more about games. There's something that I've been interested in since I was a kid. I was very lucky to grow up with a few different game consoles and things like that. And when it got to the time for me to, I guess, decide on where I wanted to go in high school, I knew that I was very good with computers. I knew that I loved games and I wanted to do something creative. So that kind of put me on a track that got me into IT, but also I wanted to make sure that I could try and get into the games industry because I really, really wanted to.
Hmm.
And so it, I had a few different options, I guess. I could have gone into like doing professional programming or working for like corporations and things. But when I started doing the game stuff, I realized how much fun it was, how wonderful it was, how creative it was. And I tried my very best to get into that industry, and it's been worth it ever since.
Oh, fantastic! And the other thing is that not only with and we'll move back to games development at the moment is that you know like many of us, including myself, we enjoy all the pop culture sort of side. Like I can see
Mm.
all the plushies and other things sitting in the background.
Mhm.
And it resembles probably many houses. We've got plushies in our place as well.
Yeah.
Tons of Pokemon and you name it. Um, but you've always been an active cosplayer as well. So
Mhm.
you've done a lot of cosplay. You love all your sort of pop culture sort of stuff. And then one of the great things is that you used to be heavily involved with volunteering. So with
Mhm.
that, is that when you were much younger, and like you mentioned that with games, what was some of the influences for some of the pop culture things that you were like when you were much younger?
Yeah, well, I think I wanted to find any way that I could to connect with other people that loved the same things that I did. So
Mm.
for in high school, I maybe had like two or three friends that I could play games with, but then I started going to conventions and I started going to events. That's when my world just like blew right open. Like
Mm.
I started to meet so many more people, and then I wanted to become a part of that as well. And when you can help out and you can meet like-minded people, that's when you can get a lot of inspiration. That was actually what prompted me to apply for the current job at the current company I'm at as well, because they did a panel at the very first PAX Australia,
Yeah.
and I liked what they were doing so much that I thought, "I really want to work for them."
Yeah.
And it's moments like that. It's like seeing the excitement of other people just like in person around you. It's infectious, it's wonderful. And being a part of that community and being a part of that scene is something that I wouldn't trade for anything because everyone lifts each other up, everyone supports each other,
Mm.
and you get inspired to create the next thing as well.
Yeah, it's a very welcoming community. Because I think, and that's the same thing that I used to
Mm.
say many years ago. And I think I always say to people that are interested in this sort of thing, and they go, "Oh, look, I've only got maybe one friend in high school, or maybe none. That they got a friend at another high school, or even if after high school, and they go, look, I've only really know one sort of person through this, or it's just all through possibly online. It's like, yeah, you start going to the conventions, you start going to all these sorts of things, and you'll find that everyone's really welcoming. Like I was speaking to
Mm.
Kelly Marie yesterday about cosplaying at it doesn't matter which convention you are.
Mm.
People are so welcoming. People go, yeah, get a photo with me. And, they're
Yeah.
really, really great with that sort of thing. Everyone's is really positive and people really want to be there. And you're in an environment where, people share the same sort of interests. And the other thing is, it's interesting is that there's a lot of people out there that have these interests, but go, oh, I don't want anyone to know that, they collect
Mm.
Star Wars, or they're into Pokemon, or they play
Mhm.
Dungeons and Dragons, or any of those things.
Mm.
They keep it really quiet, like, oh, it's thing. And it's like, well, hang on, these days, it's a lot more accepting and actually a lot more
Mm.
mainstream than what it is. Well, you look at the news. The news, every time there's those sort of conventions, and they've done that with my events as well. You get mainstream media coming and filming a story for the news, so
Mhm.
it's there. So it's I think for many people they kind of go, oh look, you feel like you're the only ones interested in this sort of thing. You go to this and start getting involved with this, and then suddenly it's like you're not alone anymore.
Exactly. And it's so wonderful. Like, I think I've made some of my longest term friends at conventions and through conventions,
Hmm.
whether it's just we all like the same video game or same anime or cartoon, and we all decided to cosplay that together. Like,
Hmm.
working together on a goal like that, it's not for anyone's joy other than your own. But
Hmm.
then when you share that with other people as well, it's just so amazing. And like, even if you feel like you didn't do a perfect job on it, it's still like the person who recognizes you and comes up to you and says, "Oh, I know that character.
Yeah.
Like, you're this, and did you see this part of the anime?" And that's how you start forming those connections and those friendships
Yeah.
that can last you a lifetime.
Yeah, and it's so true. I've heard that so many times by so many people that say, look, all their friends now, they're good friends. Well, or when I mean good friends, I mean the ones they probably engage more with are ones that have come through this process. Now,
Mm.
going back to games is like, can you tell us a little bit about maybe the first game that you made yourself, like an indie, it's little indie games and that and what was the process that you kind of used for making those sorts of things?
Yeah, well, actually, one of the first games that I made myself was probably way back in high school, and that was using tools like Game Maker. But nowadays we have things like Unity, which is kind of like the what we have for this generation.
Hmm.
And that was just mostly playing them, making them on my own, going on forums, sort of sharing my work and getting feedback on it that way. But then as I got a bit older, I started participating in game jams as well. And
Yeah.
so that was my next step up. That was the when I could start making games with other people. And if you haven't been to a game jam before, it's essentially you get together with a whole bunch of people over a weekend. Um, you you generally have a theme to go along with. So one of the first themes I had was, I guess, the Ouroboros, which is like this symbol for something that is eternal and doesn't finish. So we decided to create a game, a very silly game about a snake that would roll around and would try and avoid obstacles, and you had to pick up power ups. Just something really basic, but really, really fun. And we all brainstormed together the idea of what we wanted to make. And then once we had something that we all agree on, we broke off into our little sections. Somebody started drawing things. I started programming things. We haven't even had people finding sounds for us as well. And then every so often we just put more of it together. We'd play it. We'd all figure out, okay, what can we do next? And with all that energy and all of that passion, all kind of concentrate over that weekend, we created something new. And that's a really beautiful thing.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, no, it's great. And like, so you started, making those. So what was can you tell us maybe what the themes were of some of the early games you worked on?
Yes, so I think maybe some of the games were inspired by genres that I really loved. So
Mm,
I might have made some platforming games similar to Mario or Metroid. I might have made some RPG games as well,
mm,
because I really like Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger and Fire Emblem. And also, I guess, some space shooter games because I think that spaceships are really cool
mm.
and like the theme around space is very cool as well. And it gives you a lot of possibilities to explore.
Yeah,
And I think I just wanted to try out different things and learn different things so that when it came to making games with other people, I was able to make a lot of different things as well.
yeah. Fantastic. And so then, you progressed through, you went through your studies and everything else, and then, you went on to, become you consider a professional developer, and you
Mhm.
moved from Melbourne to up to Queensland. Are you able? And I don't want
Mm.
to press anything, but are you able to talk mention about some of the games that you've worked in, at the past? If it's you don't have to mention
Mhm.
anything that might be in production at the moment that's under
Mhm.
secret, but yeah, things that people would be aware of.
Yes, I would love to. In fact,
Mm.
one thing that I've been very lucky and fortunate to work on is a game that's been played by millions of people all around the world, and that is the one and only Fruit Ninja. So
Mm.
if you like, most people know this game. It's the fruit slicing game where fruit comes up on your phone. You use your finger, that's your blade, and you need to get the highest score possible in this crazy, frenetic juice slicing action. And
Yeah,
there's something that's so simple and wonderful and satisfying about it.
yeah,
And over the course of my career at the company that made it, Halfbrick, up in Queensland, I've been able to add on to that game. I've been able to create new swords, been able to create new events and games modes,
Mm.
and I've been able to put my own mark on that game as well.
Yeah.
And what the process that we have for making games at Heartbreak is like is where we have a team made of artists, designers, a project manager, programmers like myself, and also quality assurance, who are our game testers. And
Mm.
they're like our final line of defense to make sure that when we release an update to the game, that it's bug free and issue free as it possibly can be, and it's at the highest quality level that we can do as well. So usually what we all do is when we want to work on something new, we all get together and we talk about it. Then, if everyone agrees, usually it's the product manager who decides where it's going to go in the end.
Mhm.
Say we're making a new blade, and we're like, okay, what's this going to do? What powers is it going to have? How's it going to integrate with everything else in the game? And then we break that down into all of its components and start working away on it. And then, as soon as we can, as soon as we have something working, like maybe it's only a prototype, but we have something working, we get together and we have a look at it, and we're like, okay, this is kind of working out, but let's change a few things here. Let's make the particles a bit bigger. Maybe let's make the sound a little bit heavier. And it's through those cycles of getting together, reviewing it, and then working on it a bit more that we eventually end up with the finished product. And that sort of iteration is what allows us to create really great work instead of just hiding away for a month or a week or and just trying to come up with our own thoughts in our own heads. It's the collaboration of everyone working together that makes that work.
Yeah, like Fruit Ninja is like it's like it's such an icon. It's like it's already iconic,
Mm.
and as a global phenomenon. And the amount of people that have played it, and like I've been to arcade places where it
Hmm.
was an arcade version, where
Yeah.
and I was and even my kids were like, oh, it's Fruit Ninja and you can do this. And I was like, wow, and I was like, oh, that was designed in Australia, fantastic. And but it was like you know it's just it's iconic game. And the great thing about it is the concept is I think that's one of the great things about games like that. It's like the concept is very simplistic, but
Hmm.
and but it grabs people that go, I just want to keep playing it. I want to keep going with it. And it's also a game that anyone can play. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
great
it's
game.
actually wonderful that
Yeah.
the game itself is very family friendly. Like I
Mm,
think a lot of the philosophy behind the games that we make at Heartbreak is to make them open and accessible, to
mm,
make it so that anyone can play. In fact, we have people that use the game for therapeutic purposes as well, whether it's
mm,
to calm themselves down or to retrain their muscles from an injury or from some kind of impairment that they might have.
yeah.
So we actually like connect with our community and we learn about all these ways that people play the game, and we also like get people's reviews and feedback and try and bring that into the game as well. So we always try to have a connection with the people that play our games so that we can make sure that they're enjoying it, and that that brings us a lot of joy as well.
Yeah, and that's a thing that I've been speaking to developers and over the last few days in different parts of the world, and that same message that comes through, and also, but it's more so the message about people using it to rehabilitate muscles, or it could be something to do with anxiety issues and
Mhm.
but also accessibility. So and I think when they're talking about that as opposed to we want to make sure that it does these things. It's like, well, look, this is something that's really good for the community at the same time, as opposed to just simply entertainment. And that's something that I think that
Mhm.
a lot of people from outside that look at especially games and go, okay, well, yeah, you've got your games that are just your straight, it's just made for entertainment, and they've so many genres, but there's all these other products, other games that are out there that can help people in so many ways. And I think that's what makes them appealing.
Yes, definitely.
Mm,
And they also become part of culture as well.
yeah.
And they can like show people that they have a place in the world, especially, I mean, Fruit Ninja itself isn't necessarily a game where you have characters in it, but we can still add touches from our own experiences and our own culture to place those into the game. So we've done things like Easter events, we've done like an American holiday, and we've done things like Halloween, and we try and integrate with culture as well, so that people
Mm.
have like this nice feeling when they play this game, that they feel a connection to the game as well.
Yeah, and see, and that's something that I've always found appealing is that, you know, you could be playing a game and then it comes up saying, oh, we've got this theme. And you're like, well, I want to play the theme. And it's
Mm.
because it's, you know, and that's the good thing is about, especially with Fruit Ninja, it's one of those games that, you know, if I've been on a train or I've been on a bus or, you know, a long haul or something, or even waiting in a doctor's office, it's like I can have the sound down and
Mhm.
I can play this. I can play this while
Mhm.
I'm waiting, and I'm still active and I'm being entertained, and you know
Mm.
everything else I don't really have to you know worry too much about. But yeah, and those sort of
Mhm.
things that come through, it's like if you're doing that, you know, you could be an hour on the train heading to work somewhere, and then you pop it open and it says, oh, you know, the Halloween version, or it's, you know, some other theme. You go, oh, okay, here's something different, and I'm gonna challenge that, and people really respond well to those sort of things because it's like,
Mm.
well, they love the game, you know, they don't want it to end in many respects, but when there's a, you know, a variation that comes in,
Mhm.
it can make that journey to work, and then on the way back or even for the next few days, if they're on it constantly, it's like, great, I'm playing my game, but it's in it with a slightly different theme.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's actually something really interesting about mobile games, and that the fact that Fruit Ninja has been around for nearly 10 years now.
Mm,
And to think about a game being alive for that amount of time
yeah.
is really phenomenal. And in order to make that happen, we had to make changes to it over time. We had to keep it fresh. We had to like find ways that we could keep it interesting, and also like if people maybe like went away from it for a while and came back, that there was something new for them to experience and find joy with as well.
And like 10 years, that's like centuries in in
Hmm.
game history. Because if you even look at 10 years if you go to the 80s, you know, you go to 1980, you still got Atari 2600s, those sorts of things. And then, you know, 10 years later, you've got, you know, Sega, Nintendo, and the
Hmm.
games are so different. And the same thing if you go from 1990 to 2000, but or even other games, it's virtually unheard of, you know, there's probably a couple exceptions, but most games it's like a few years if they're really popular, and then it's like, no, there's like like, oh, okay, we've got part two, which is a whole new game as opposed to an extension of the original one. But you know,
Hmm.
but yeah, 10 years, that's amazing. And you know, for some people that's like, yeah, I've been playing it all my life, sort of thing. So
Hmm.
I think it's a major accomplishment to be able to grab on, because it's almost falls into the realms of, you know, TV series where, you know,
Mm.
people watch a series for, you know, a lot of TV series don't last 10 years, you know, there's only a few that do,
Mm.
but that's it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like it's really humbling to have reached the status of the game being almost like a classic in terms of mobile games. It's kind of like you think of games like Tetris, or you think of
Yeah.
games like Pokemon or Final Fantasy that have stuck with people all this time, and it's because people saw something special in the game and they loved the feel of it. And I'm so glad that we've been able to keep that alive. And it hasn't been taken down from the app stores. We've continued to maintain it and update it and care for it.
Yeah, and the thing is also and like you mentioned Tetris, it's like, I think it does fall into the category of those sort of games where of people knowing it. So
Mhm.
you could be speaking to someone somewhere who's a non-gamer of, you know, console, PC, all that sort of stuff, and you know, you can mention Tetris and they'll go, oh yes, I know of Tetris.
Mhm.
You mentioned Fruit Ninja and they go, oh yes, I know Fruit Ninja. You know, you could mention, you know, Gears of War or Call of Duty and that sort of thing, and you know, they may not have known it because they're not part
Mhm.
of doing that. But you know, and that's the whole
Mm.
thing I think with, you know, that it's like, yeah, it gives it that iconic status, and it's like, even if it just say
Mhm.
just even if it was just stopped tomorrow, in another 10 years time, people would still talk about Fruit Ninja.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, it's something, you know, and I think it's great that, you know, you're involved with something like that.
And actually, one of the goals of the company is to create games that people remember for a lifetime. So that goes into the heart and soul of every game that we make there.
Hmm. Yeah, fantastic. So, um, a few things I normally ask of everyone is, what sort of movies, do you watch, and things that have really influenced you with movies. What sort of games
Mhm.
do you play, or even TV shows. What what's things that maybe influenced you from that side as a kid watching that, and things that
Mhm.
you're interested
Mhm.
in now.
Yeah, well, I've always loved any movie that dealt with kind of superheroes or sci-fi. I also watch a lot of anime as well. I think I got into that probably when I was a teenager, and I've
Mm,
always liked the kind of feeling of somebody doing their best to get stronger and somebody always trying to improve themselves. Like you think of like the classic anime protagonist like Luffy from One Piece or like Edward Elric from Fullmetal Alchemist and or even just Goku from Dragon Ball, and
mm,
how they never give up on themselves, or even if they go through a hard time, they like maybe get together with their friends and then they overcome the challenging situation, they bring down the villain. And I think a lot of that has just made me into a person who's very determined, very positive as well.
yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And so, what games are you currently playing?
Oh, yes. So as far as games go, my favorite game right now is actually Teamfight Tactics.
Yep.
So if you haven't heard of that one, it's made by the same people that made League of Legends, and it's a
Okay.
very strategic game. And I love strategic sort of tactical games where you create like this squad of characters and you place them down on a board, almost like a chessboard. But then when the action comes to it, you actually take a step back and the characters take over and they use their own artificial intelligence to fight out the battle for you. And
Okay.
so a lot of it plays out where you're just trying to make the best move possible. You're trying to upgrade your characters. You're trying to find characters that work together really well. And right now, it's also got a bit of a space theme. So I have a real bias towards those kind of themes as well. And I find that the way that they've done it is so joyful, like the animations, all the particle effects, and all of that kind of thing. So I guess it's also a game that I play because it's competitive,
Yeah.
and I've got myself quite high up in the ranks, so I want to keep pushing and see if I can get all the way to the top.
Oh, fantastic. Right. Well, I want to say very much, Sammy. Thanks for your time today for talking about it, and and it's a great story, and you're a success story for someone who's always been interested in this sort of thing, and to go through and to be
Hmm.
doing it, professionally, and to be part of, a team that makes such an iconic and well-known product globally. It's just
Mm.
absolutely fantastic. Now, for those of you who are watching it through the New Game Plus TV TGF stream, we'll put some links down that. So if you're interested
Hmm.
in, Fruit Ninja, or you want to know a bit more about Halfbrick or any of those sort of things, we're going to have that sort of thing. And then I know that, yeah, Sammy, you've got an Instagram account. So
Hmm.
we'll talk about later if you want to have that included as well,
Of
because I
course.
know you do a lot of cosplay.
Hmm.
But for those of you who are watching this after the event, and on the Cause and Effect Gamers YouTube channel, we will have all the information in the description for you to kind of check out and follow up. So on behalf of TGF, also New Game Plus and Cause and Effect Gamers, I want to say thank you very much for your time, Sammy.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It was wonderful talking to you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you very much.